Hi everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, fall has arrived and things are starting to change. Just a few short days ago, the cabin deck was full of trees. All that's left is one of my boxwoods. The new bench that I built this year is starting to thin out just a little bit as well. I've rearranged a few trees, but all of the Premna and the Gmelina that were used for the workshop have left most of the locations, and we had to bring those inside. The Premnas and Gmelina that used to cover the deck floor here have completely left, so now I have all of this room, a few boxwoods left, and we also have a barberry and a couple other odd ficuses still on the railing, but it's looking awfully thin. Some of the railing shelves do not have trees on them anymore because, well, the trees are heading indoors. Summer officially has come to an end. Yesterday was the first day of fall, and so now we're looking at some preparations to get some of the tropical trees on the inside to the plant room, and then starting to take a sneak peek of what's going to happen out here in the yard. And in the garden that still has tomatoes and plants, we're going to have to clear all that out, but that's down the road. Some of the benches are still looking a little full. We got a lot of temperate trees that are going to be just fine, and even some tropicals. After talking to fellow YouTuber Nigel Saunders, we were talking about bringing in some of the tropical trees, the ficuses in particular. We're going to bring them into the house this year, not quite as early as years past. So the advice I got from Nigel, one thing that he has suggested, is that when the ficus trees go in, when it hits 50 at night, it's maybe a little too soon. So this year I'm going to try to leave my trees out a little bit longer, a little bit more of that last season growing spurts before it has that time to rest down in my plant room. So temps hit the upper 40s a couple of times in the last week or so, but we're looking at around 50 or higher for the next week or so, and temps in the 70s, some mid to upper 70s. We've got a couple of weeks of great growth potential. So we're going to keep some of the ficus outside now for a couple extra weeks here in my Minnesota backyard garden. But we have some trees that I've acquired that cannot do very well outside. One of the Minnesota Bonsai Society members has told me that his Premna and Gmelina success has only come when he's had temperatures that were 60 or above. His greenhouse that he kept around 50 to 55 was never really warm enough for the Premna and the Gmelina, more so the Premna, to keep them in good shape. So these tropical varieties, which are not ficus, the Premna and Gmelina, we brought all of those into the plant room. So let's go down to the plant room and see the initial setup for another winter, another fall, winter, early spring down there, where we're going to keep them nice and safe and happy. So let's head inside. I'm down in the plant room, and though I'd prefer the trees be outside as much as possible, I have it on pretty good authority that these Premna and Gmelina plants, tropical trees, not ficuses, but a tropical variety, the Premna right here and the Gmelina right here, really should be at temperatures that are 60 and above. So if we have to battle between more light or more warmth, one of the Minnesota Bonsai Society members, Kirk, has really assured me that they're really going to want more of the warmth than the light. So we're going to keep them in here so we don't get those cold temperatures at nighttime. And then the daytime, even though the heat's not kicking on in my house yet, down here the temperature is averaging probably close to 70, 75 degrees, maybe even 80 in the middle of the daytime. I've got the window open right now that's cooled things off a little bit. I'm at about 67 degrees. The reason I opened up the window, relative humidity when I came down here this afternoon after a day at work was 97%. So most of the trees were watered pretty good because I did the cleaning method. I took some insecticidal soap and I cleaned all the trees that you see right here. I cleaned them all outside in my yard, and we let the soap stand there for a little while, and then I sprayed off with my hose all of the insecticidal soap after it was on there for some time. And so now we hope that all the critters are going to go ahead and stay away from this batch that are inside. So research online, grab yourself some insecticidal soap that's organic if you can. That's what I would promote. We've got some young plants. We've got some Portulacaria afra, and we have some new cuttings from the Premna and the Gmelina over here on the fish tank. Ficus forest, as it used to be called. But now we have new plants up there. We have all the Premnas up here and a couple of Portulacaria afras sitting right here. some more Premnas right here. I just don't have enough room for two reasons. One, I have a lot more trees that are going to be down here this year than in winters past. The other reason is some of these trees have not been cut at all since we ordered the trees for the Minnesota Bonsai workshops. It is my job for the rest of the summer to take care of them. So we're going to talk about the trees, we're going to do a little bit of trimming of the trees so we can place these trees in a really nice spot for the rest of winter. So let me show you what I'm going to do because I ordered some lights. We're near the greenhouse area of the plant room. This is back in the closet where I have the fish tank stacked double high here, and over here we have two shelves of trees. Now I have my lights set up here, but I don't have any down here because I needed to order those. So a couple of videos we talked about me ordering the lights, and today they arrived. So we'll show those in a moment. Up here we have a couple of plants that'll probably move, but what we have to do is see if we can fit the Premnas and the Melinas under these lights. So a lot of the Premnas remained really short. They cut them off pretty short before they sent them to me. There's a couple of chops here, and this has been growing this summer in my backyard. And these are the leftover ones that the workshop members did not take. We'll save them for next year. And look at that, that fits under there really quite nicely. But we have some overhang here and some branches that probably will just bump into each other and create too much thickness down here. So I'm going to go ahead and give these a little bit of a haircut down here so they all fit better. I probably can fit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 on this one, 10 down below, and I think I have any more than that. Here's one of the Melinas, also known as the Parrot's beak. So if you do let this growth go way out in these trees, eventually they may bloom and get a flower that kind of resembles a parrot's beak. So this is Gmelina, G-M-E-L-I-N-A, the Gmelina. And as you can tell, if I put this one here, it's just not, it ain't gonna go in there. It's not fitting. So we're gonna have to do a little bit of trimming or have the lights higher down below, or some of these taller ones will have to be on the other side of the plant room. In the plant room, we're gonna make sure that these kind of go what we call maybe semi-dormant, or they're just gonna be in a resting period. So these will sit in my plant room and probably not do a whole lot for the first month or so, maybe 2 or 3 months. And then maybe it'll just start kicking in December, January, and we'll start to get some growth. But again, we don't want the Gmelina and the Premna below 60, so we're going to have my plant room with plenty of light and plenty of heat in the early goings. In a previous episode, we talked about the new plant room table that I constructed, or I repurposed. We painted the bottom black, we got this thick glass, a great working table, and we're going to do our first bit with the table and put it to use. You'll also maybe notice I didn't find a spot for Gramps. I still think Gramps is going to go up here, but I got to see how many plants are going to come in here. I'm going to hold off before I put Gramps up. But he's got his pipe in his mouth, he's staring over my artwork, my bonsai work, and I've got the artistic flair and spirit of my grandfather Gramps, and that's going to just keep things, I think, super cool this year and a good vibe. So I ordered some of my 1x1s, foot by foot grow lights. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and open these up. So this is my full spectrum 75 watt grow light that has the purple and the reds and the blues and reds, and it gives you that kind of purpley glow look. The lights have been working really well for me down in the plant room. There we go. So we have a cable, and it's going to go on to our power cord here. All right, and we're going to plug this into the wall. And this comes with the wires that you can hang it up. I usually custom hang mine with little hooks. And we're going to go ahead and plug this in and see how we're working. There we go. All right, so we've got that nice glow. We're going to keep this about 6 to 8 inches above our trees and provide some great light. So I have 3 of these lamps that we're going to put on the bottom shelf in there on the greenhouse area, and we will have some more grow lights to keep all these plants full of some great light. So it's working, it's awesome, it's ready to go. Nothing like a little holiday gift giving to myself in September. I also, while I was online, knowing that I never seem to have enough of these, is I also ordered a couple of timers. Now there's all kinds of fancy timers out there that you can turn on and off your lights and your fans. You buy whatever works for you. Sometimes I really like the simplicity of this analog style where you're just going to go ahead and click down the buttons for the on position, and you put them off for when you up for on and down for off, or is it vice versa? I forget. Each one is a little bit different, right? Here we go. Doesn't tell me. The other ones tell me on the back. So we're going to keep it dark in the nighttime, and then wherever it's activated in the daytime, it'll be on. We can keep it on solid for about 12 hours down here with the lights. I'll keep this on for 12 hours. And the one I use for my fan will go about 15 minutes to a half an hour every 1 to 2 hours to keep the fan circulating here in the plant room. So also be careful when you order these, because a lot of them don't have the 3 prongs on there. So you want the 3 prong and the 3 prong so you can plug it into any adapter or any of your extension cords. So make sure you get what you need. A couple of them that I have, and the reason why I had to order some more is because they didn't have the 3 prong. So I'll set these up and make sure that the lights are all on when I want them. I'll make sure that the fans are on when I want them. And I've got several, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I got 14 lights in here that need to be plugged into something. So this into a power strip, and we've got our on and off switches automatically timed, so I don't have to worry about it quite so much. So we got a couple of new timers as well. All right, it's time to do a little bit of pruning on the Gmelina and the Premna. So the Premna is over here, a little bit more oval-shaped leaves, a little bit more compact of a tree compared to the Gmelina with the long leggy growth here. So we're going to cut this one up. It has a nice little movement on the trunk on the bottom there. If you look at it this way, now camera, where the leaves are more in the way, you can see it kind of comes up a little bit and moves over and then comes up this way. We're going to shorten this one up in just a little bit here, and we're also going to shorten this one up and make it a little bit more compact. We'll talk a little bit about the basics of pruning, some clip and grow, and again, mainly this is just to get these trees all kind of compact and kind of the way they started this summer. And then we're going to try to keep them alive and real healthy all winter long. And then when we come to our workshops next year, we have some leftover trees that we'll either sell to MBS members or we'll use them for future workshops. So it's my job to keep them going. This one, the Gmelina, has this really long growth. 2 feet of growth. These also have some thorns, so be careful when you're working on the Gmelina. So this has some super long growth, so we're going to talk about that as well. We're going to put that one aside, and we're going to start today with the Premna. Hey everyone, we're going to do the Premna. As we talked with the workshop members, the attendees of the workshop through Minnesota Bonsai Society that we just finished this past weekend, we did transplant a few of these Gmelinas and Premna. Now the best time of year typically is going to be that July range, early August, middle of the summer, and then it's got some more warmth yet to heal up. We reminded the folks that as we did these trees, we are going to bring them right inside, and we're going to have them in this nice warm environment like my plant room, and we encourage them to make sure it's warm and it stays humid and they get plenty of water. These have to fit in my plant room. I just want to give them a little bit of a haircut, and I don't want to cut too much off because these are used as educational tools for the people that we work with. So for instance, this tree right here, if this were my tree and I was going to start working on this tree, this branch right here, these 2 branches down here, I don't know that I would use them. We've got 1, 2, 3 branches, one in the back that's thicker, and here, all 3 of these coming from this same spot right here. So that might create some bulge later on, so we wouldn't want that. We'd probably cut some of those off. But I don't know who the future owner of this is going to be, and I don't know what front they're going to want for the tree. This is a little bit busy of a front because everything's growing out at the camera. This shows off the trunk better. We've got this big, thick old split off over here, or maybe we cut this whole big branch off and we keep this slanted over here, and then when you plant it next time, you plant it at an angle like this, or more this way. So there's so many things that someone else can do. Remember, bonsai is an art form. It's your art form, not mine. I can show you what I'm going to do. I can give you ideas of what I think, but it's going to ultimately be up to you. And so the owner of this tree should make those decisions. Now that in mind, I don't want this tree to have any more flaws, if you will, down the road, so there might be a few things that I will cut just so that it doesn't maybe bulge before the next owner gets it. But as I say that, we're going to be in this kind of dormancy, semi-dormancy. It's just going to chill out and hang out down here in the winter months where there won't be the natural sun and the huge warmth. It'll be artificial warmth, artificial sun light, right, from the grow lights. And so we won't have a ton of growth, so nothing should really bulge out, but there's certainly things we can maybe do to make sure that that doesn't happen. And again, one of the main things I want to do is to just prune up a little bit so we have enough room to make all these fit into my house, into my plant room for next year. So right away, this branch right out here, super nice and long, it's giving it some nice maybe thickness back in the trunk, but it's too big. Now we have a little growth way back here. Look at the bud right here and some leaves right there. We could in the summertime cut it way back to here and let those branches become new branches. And this one back here, right there, that's another one. So we've got some yellowing here. Very common for ficus and tropical trees when you bring them inside for the winter or for the winter months, yeah, that they're going to lose some of their leaves. They might turn a little bit yellow from overwatering too if we've overwatered these. We have had a lot of rain in Minnesota of late. So we're also taking it from a different environment. We were talking at our workshop that sometimes these trees, the ficus in general, you can move them 3 feet in your house and all of a sudden leaves will fall off because you did something different. Maybe it's closer to a heat vent. Maybe it's closer to a light source. Maybe it's closer to the wind when someone opens up the door, or there's a draft by a window. So you can move it into one room different from before and you might have some leaves falling off. Let's go ahead and just trim this one up. So now this one I could trim back to here because we do have this branch growing up here. So we have nothing growing off here. Some leaves have fallen off. My first cut might be right here. That's kind of shorter. The branch comes back here and splits. We've got a little dead branch right there. And again, I don't want to do too much of this work because we will teach the folks that take the workshop to do the cleaning. So if I just go ahead and get rid of some of this growth, we're just going to shorten up the tree in general. Here's a tree right here, a branch right here, super thick. Now remember in bonsai, we want this branch right here to go out and get thinner, 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 and thinner, thinner, and thinner. Right now, this branch is about the same thickness almost all the way out to the tip. So we want to balance that off a little bit, and I don't want that to become too obnoxiously one size. So we're going to cut this one a little bit harder right to there. And this can be a cutting, by the way. All of these can be cutting. And we'll make some new plants with all of our clippings today. Up close in here now, this would be a good example of teaching someone how these two branches are kind of competing for our eyes. They're both going out the same direction. They're growing from a very similar spot. One of these two branches would go. Should I take one of them off now? I could, because there is a slight little bit of bulge in here, and there's 2 more branches back here on this side that are growing from the same spot. So I don't really like that that's happening. So if I'm looking at that as a potential front someday, I have to take one of these 2 branches off. So that didn't drastically change the design of the tree. It's just going to keep less bulge right there in case I happen to get a really good growth spurt between now and July of next year when we put this into the workshop hands of someone, right? And so this is going to have all of May, June, July, some of July to grow. So I do want to make it so it doesn't get too bulky for some areas. So this tree right now, with what I've cut off, is definitely smaller, a little bit more compact. We probably could put this and we can make some room for it. It should fit pretty good. I think I want to cut a little bit more off though. This branch right back here, look at this great big growth over here. If we want to balance this off, maybe we cut this one a little bit shorter right there. And then now these two have a little bit more balance. These leaves are bigger, but there's more on this one. Let's get those in balance. We'll cut this off a little shorter so it doesn't block much of the light. So without making too many major decisions, we have made this compact, a little bit nicer, and this will fit in my plant room with a whole bunch of them right next to each other, and they're not going to bump each other as much. So let's put that one aside. Remember, if you want to make some cuttings of all these plants, if you've got them and you're cutting them out, go ahead and try to propagate them. You're going to take about the 4 to 6 inches of leaves down from the bottom, and you're going to pluck them right off. You might score a little bit of the bark right here. My fingernails are strong enough on this nice soft wood to just go ahead and scrape it down to the cambium layer. I've got this much, 4 inches or so, 3 to 4 inches of nice woody substance. We put that right into the soil. I use recycled bonsai soil most of the time. Sometimes I might have it in vermiculite, sometimes I might have it in some sphagnum moss, vermiculite and sphagnum moss, and just some potting soil, a little bit of mix of both. I've even tried some in sand over the years. So I'm going to promote this every other leaf thing, just like we do in bonsai, right? Left, right, left. So I'm going to cut this one off, and I'm going to cut this one off, and I'm going to cut these flowers. This was ready to bloom, and I'm just going to cut it right there. So I have 3 flowers left, or 3 leaves left rather. So now we don't have too many leaves for too much respiration, right? We don't want this to suck out all the energy, dry up and fizzle away. So we have 3 leaves, we put this in some soil, and we can go ahead and have some propagation. Here's another example. We'll take this one and we'll take these bottom leaves off. We're just gonna rip them right off. We don't need those bottom ones. This one's a little bit shorter. We won't go too much higher. I'm gonna take off this big leaf here. I'm gonna take off this one here and this one here. And there we have our 3 leaves, and I'm gonna take off this bud, which had a little bit of white flowers on there ready to go. So here's another one, just a little bit of this darker wood color here and then light green here. We cut this with a sharp scissors, or just me scoring it with my fingernail again. We just get down so we peek out that cambium layer. We stick this into some soil. We might have yet another one. I had to pull back for the Gmelina because it's so wild and crazy and so much height to it. So right off the get-go, we can just trim all of this stuff that's really long and leggy. This is all growth from my backyard this year. We've got super nice, a foot back here at least, maybe 18 inches, a foot here, 6 to 8 inches, 6 to 8, all of these, and this one was 2 feet tall. All kinds of growth. But now I want to show you a close-up of this so we can talk about this extra growth. So as we look at the backside of this tree, or the side of this tree, we have this branch right here that was chopped right there, and there's some death right there. So sometimes when people are looking at trees, they'll see that and they'll get a little concerned. We'll take that little death right off, and who knows, we'll probably even get some growing back there, some buds. Now I'll let the person who gets this tree decide if they'll even keep this branch or keep these 2, but I want to show you. This branch right here is super long to the left, goes all the way to the left about 1.5 feet, and then this one is the big long one right here that goes about 2 feet to the right. And it's competing with this one right here, but there you go. We've got both directions. So what we're going to simply do is we're going to cut off all of this growth right there. We're going to cut off all of this growth right there. Here is what I just cut off. We cut off about 1 foot plus here and almost 2 feet here. This is more like maybe 14 inches or so, 15, and this is almost 21, 22 inches, I bet, if we straightened it out. So this can also be used as some cuttings. So my cuttings with my Gmelinas this year, I've had about 70% success. So if I had gloves on right now, I could maybe go down and I'll try it without my gloves because there's thorns on here. We're going to take all the leaves off. And there's the thorns. Okay, so we're going to cut those off, and then we're going to stick this into some dirt, and we can probably get this one to grow pretty well. Again, I've used recycled bonsai soil for most of my cuttings because I have plenty of leftover bonsai soil. I've made sure I've rinsed it out really good, and we're good to go. So I have a nice chunk down here again, 4 or 5 inches. We've got all this here. Now this is such a big tree, we don't want all of that greenery to make this work. So I'm going to go like this. I'm only going to keep that, because now I can have 2 cuttings. This is one, I can make a cutting out of the other one. I'm gonna get rid of this super big leaf, this big leaf, this big leaf, this big leaf, this big leaf. In the every other pattern, we're going all the way up the tree to the very tip top. I think I'll even cut off this one right here, and we'll make it a little bit shorter. So this will stick into some dirt, and we'll try to grow a Gmelina with that one. Now it's time to trim this one up just a little bit so this one can stay in the plant room. Now again, it was too tall to fit in the current shelf back there. But I don't want to make it too much of a chop because this is not a great time of year to chop. I'd rather be chopping again in the summertime, right before perhaps the growing season, so I know it's going to heal up and grow real fast. It's just going to sit here and not do a whole lot. Probably an okay for me to chop with that in mind because it wouldn't be bleeding too much. The top is a little bit thick and chunky, so this might be one of those trees that people have a hard time choosing because it doesn't have the greatest features up top. Up top. It's a pretty straight trunk. There is some subtle movement going up. We have almost a T-bar right here, almost a T-bar right here, and so it's kind of a tough tree. But look right here. Look at this growth right here. Look at the back budding right here. We can cut any of these and get some good back budding and new growth. Now this one's growing in the right in the armpit, the upper armpit of this tree. I'm going to cut this one off right there so people don't have to see that. Again, they might not choose this tree because of that. That won't change the appearance of the tree too much. They're going to decide if they're going to want this side or this side for their future tree. Now I will cut off this tip. I will cut off this tip. And I will cut off this back tip because we made this just shorter. And we'll see where that grows next year. And you put that in a bonsai pot and clean it up a little bit more, it kind of looks like a young bonsai, but it's got a long way to go. So the challenge with this tree, if you'll notice, is you got these bar branches again here, and kind of here. It gets a little bit thick right here, and then it splits, but it splits towards you and towards me. So if I turn it this way, you can see the split a little bit better going this way. It spreads out. It spreads out that way. So as you peek in there, you got this long branch here, and then there's all this thick stuff up here. So I have to make a decision now if I want to make a chop for this tree or not. And I think it'd be safe to make at least one chop, which is maybe cleaning up where they chopped it before. So right in here is the old chop from last year. So let's give that a chop to clean it up a little bit so it doesn't look so unsightly. Get that concave cutter in there. This is my not as sharp one. And now this wound right here is going to be a little bit cleaner. Now what to do? So if I can point to something right here. Look right in here. As I pull this away, we got this branch right here. This branch right here is growing from way inside on this trunk. It's coming over this one and coming over the front branch. That branch is horrible. Again, a good teaching tool for someone at the workshop that's how you get rid of some of this stuff, is that you go ahead and you cut those branches off. Oh, and look right here. I think I have a little piece of scale that was left on after I treated this yesterday. Look at that. We got to make sure now that this tree has no more scale on it, so it's a good thing that we're looking at that. So here's a close-up of one of the leaves with the scale on there. So as you can see my finger there next to the leaf, we've got that scale right there. It's kind of that almost like a little bit of a shell. It's kind of a crusty shell with the scale inside, soft, almost like a snail. And so I'm just going to take that off the leaf, and we're going to get rid of those. We can put those in a plastic bag and throw them away so they never get out and procreate, right? So we're looking through this tree, looking to find all of these and getting them off of there. We don't want that scale to make more scale. So now we have to look under the tree. We have to look under all the branches. I don't want to bring scale in here. This will also make me look at all my other trees in case I have any scale that's thinking it's going to do some great stuff. Okay, so right here, this leaf right here, this leaf right here has a scale on it right there. Okay, so this is why it's so important to use some insecticidal soap when you're bringing your trees inside. I hope the insecticidal soap would have killed all those scale and other possible bugs. In the meantime, these are big enough, of course, scale is big enough to scrape right off. So I'm going to have to look real carefully at this whole tree to see if there's any scale. We found two so far. So let's make a final decision with what we're going to cut or what we're not going to cut. And if you could see inside of here, some of these crisscrossing branches are growing into each other. They're so packed in there. And there is some reverse taper in here. So this will be a tough tree for someone to pick because they're not going to like this reverse taper in here. But there's some thickness right here. Right here there's some thickness. It gets skinnier here, it gets thicker right here, and then it gets thinner up here again. We got this crossover branch here. And so that's not the best for us moving forward. So we're going to have to decide if we're going to make that cut, make a cut that's going to make the tree look a little bit better. I'm very cautious about this cut though, because I don't want to make something that somebody else doesn't want. Someone else might pick this tree and have a different idea than what I'm seeing. There's a dead branch in here. On this tree right here, I've got this branch crossing inside like I've been talking about, and I've got this one going inside too. I'm just going to try to cut those two off, and we'll leave it at that. So I'm going to try to reach in there and cut those two off, and we'll see what happens with this tree, and if anybody chooses this tree and what they might do with it. So here we go. Took that section off. We'll put that over here and we'll check it for scale. So we've got a bit of a scar here, and then this branch right next to it is growing into this scar right there. That branch is growing into that right there. They were actually growing in together to form one branch at some point. We're going to go ahead and cut this inside one. So here's that one that crossed. We can take that out, and now the tree has some more air to breathe. Notice how up here we can see more now. We can got a little air in here. We got the scar still here, and now someone can decide if they want the tree to go to the left or the right. And so I'm going to try to get rid of that scar a little bit more, and we'll let someone else make that decision later on. And if no one picks this tree, we'll keep working on this tree and use it as a demo tree. So there's a little leaf right there growing already that just kind of covers the scar. So as you can see there, I opened up this area right here by cutting those two sections off. Right there. So that's all I'll do for this tree. So there still is a little bit of reverse taper here, but now this is opened up and we won't get too much growth here, hopefully, to swell up this next growing season. And then the next tree owner can make a decision on what they want to cut. I think we'll leave that there. The only other thing I would do right now to also help the lack of too much thickening is we've got some branches up here that we have 2 or 3 growing out from the exact same spot. And so if I could clean that up a little bit, that might help with the thickness again as well. We're finishing up this Gmelina. We've shortened up most of the length of this one. We're just going to make a couple of shorten up spots here. And then up on top here, dead branches were taken off. Up here there's a couple spots here where it's growing right opposite of each other. The very top of this tree has an opposite look. We don't know what's going to be the front of this tree yet. We've got some crossing branches here. But definitely right here, there's 2 branches growing right next to each other, right in here. There's 2 branches growing up, a thick one and a thinner one. We're going to let the one that's going up stay alive, and we're going to cut it off right here. We'll cut that one off. Now as you spin this tree around, you can see a little bit more of the top of the structure. And then whoever's going to have this tree, this branch is growing straight down. That does us no good right there. We'll get rid of that one. Some of the leaves are dangling. And now we'll let someone else decide in the future what they're going to do with this tree. So we've trimmed the Premna, we've trimmed the Gmelina. They are ready to go into the area that we're going to have the lights fixed on here soon. And we'll be able to put these here in protection with great light, great warmth, great water, great humidity for the rest of winter. So there is the Gmelina. I've made a little room on this shelf here to bring in the Gmelina and the Premna to show you the final results. We cut back the Premna, and the Premna fits in there really nicely. We put that under here. It's really close to that light. We might want to raise the light just a little bit. And I put the Premna, the Gmelina over here. This one's just at that light level. So we have some light touching right there. So we're gonna have to put this on the lower shelf, which is a little bit taller. So this will go on the lower shelf where the light will be able to fit higher up in there, and the tree will be just fine. Well, that was super fun. We got 2 trees cleaned up, a quick peek at the backyard to show you how things are looking the day after the first day of fall, and things are changing. Things are starting to move and shift in the bonsai world, and so now we've got all these trees in here that we're gonna have to take care of. So I have a whole bunch more trees that I'm gonna have to do some trimming on, so I'm gonna kick back and do some of those this weekend and make room for these plants. I will share one thing so we can do an update later before I call it quits for today, is we had some trees that had some damage from some critters this year. So they got to the trunk of the trees and cut around and girdled around the trunk almost the whole way, all the way around on about 4 or 5 trees. And so I have taken and I've done some quick air layers. This was done about a month ago. We put some air layers on here, and this is a twin trunk that splits up here, and I'm hoping this all stays alive and we get a whole bunch of roots in here. We're not going to look in here for several more months. We're just going to keep watering it and hoping for the best. The nice thing about this tree, I've already noticed growth right down here at the base. So there's life in there. There's water and nutrients going up and down the trunk and the foliage and the roots, and there's new growth right down there. So these are going to do okay, I believe. Here's another one. This was a great big one, and you got all kinds of chewing all the way around the bark here, but look down here. The Premna wants to grow. So I've been told that these will heal up really quickly. Even if your critter chews almost all the way around your tree's not necessarily going to die. Now it's going to be a scar that probably won't heal and look great down the road. So the look of your tree down the road might look really, really different. So in the meantime, I also air layered this one, of course, up high here where the critter chop had stopped, and we have hopefully a whole bunch of roots in there. And even as I look down here right now on this branch, this little bud by my finger, this little bud is new since I air layered. So this is alive and growing, and this might be a really interesting stout of a tree, short little stubby with new growth. We'll have to see with the air layers. So I have about 4 or 5 trees that we air layered. Another tip for you, someone did say that they do grow well if you kind of heel them in. So by heeling in, I was told to maybe put a little sphagnum moss. You could even wrap a little bit of a tape around that tree at where the sore was, but to try some sphagnum moss. So I put some sphagnum moss at the bottom of this trunk where all of the critter chops were. So it's almost like an air layer without any plastic or pot on this section. I just made a mound of sphagnum moss, and this tree is still, of course, doing very well. It's probably going to get maybe roots in the middle, almost like an air layer would, right? We'll see what happens down below this sphagnum moss after several months. I'm not going to look at these for a long time. I'm going to try to be patient and see what happens with this growth. So this is not an official air layer, just sphagnum moss, and we'll look at this and see over time if this Premna does really well. I've heard that they heal up and can get better very easily compared to some other varieties. So we are hoping for the best with the Premnas. Hey, there you have it. Fantastic. It was great to work on a couple of trees again. So this has been the first couple of weeks back to school for me. So school has been crazy, busy at work. Less work on the trees. Just finished an MBS workshop with some Premnas, Gmelinas, and Junipers. Had a blast of a time. Every day is a great day to work on bonsai, right? We had a great time, and now I've got most of my Premna and Gmelina, all of them actually, inside, and most of my, I think all of my portulacarias are in now, just in case the nighttime temps get a little too cool. Again, some of the ficus trees we're going to leave out a little bit longer. That is going to do it for another episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Click like, subscribe, tell all your friends about the channel. And I love those comments. I love those questions. Anything, comments, questions, concerns, send them on in and we'll see what we can do for that. All right, I'd love to hear from you. So take care of you. Take care of your bonsai. And you know what? We're going to catch you very soon.